Contradictory it is to say that nobody can ever judge. It kind of reminds me of this very short conversation that you're about to see, and it took place between a guy named Cy ten Bruggencate. If you've never heard of Cy ten Bruggencate, he is a Christian apologist. He's out of Canada, and on this short clip, he's actually on the campus of the University of Georgia, and the first couple seconds are just the audio portion, but I want you to listen very carefully as he's speaking on this campus, and listen as a student tries to reprimand him for judging others, and watch what happens.
I think I'm bringing them to Christ. I think I'm exposing the folly of denying Christ.
Okay, so you're judging people, is what you're saying.
Is it wrong to judge, sir?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
only God is the final judge, not you.
To judge?
Of course.
So what I'm doing is wrong.
Yes, 100%.
Stop judging me, sir.
Okay.
Well, that was a pretty short conversation, wasn't it? I mean, and he just pointed out to the guy that, man, you're just contradicting yourself when you tell me that I can't judge. Now, Cy's pretty quick on his feet. It's kind of a quick, sort of a snappy comeback to the guy challenging him. But, of course, as you notice, that was kind of a conversation stopper, right? That conversation, that door slammed shut, and we don't want to be a conversation stopper. We're trying to start, as James said. We're trying to start conversation, and so I just want to take a moment and go back and think, how might have we handled that a little bit differently? So you're talking to somebody, and they say, you guys are so judgmental, you're always judging others. And we might begin by saying, well, you realize, and I'm just pointing out that at this very moment, you're actually judging me. Do you realize that? And I'm okay with that. I'm just pointing out to you that we all do. It doesn't do you any good to tell me that I can't judge or to tell me to stop judging, because we all do. You just did. We all do. And then you can move on from there and say, but let's think about that for a moment. We all make judgments. They're not just any kind of judgments. We're really making judgments about what's right and what's wrong. We're really making moral judgments. And then kind of take them to that next level and say, but if we're going to make moral judgments, we eventually have to arrive at some moral standard. It's got to be grounded in a moral standard if it's going to be meaningful. And then just explain to them and sort of unpack for them why that moral standard, the one that best makes sense of our moral intuitions, is that the standard has to be higher than the individual, higher than culture, that there has to be this ultimate standard that ultimately comes from God. And you see how you can turn that into actually a conversation starter instead of just letting the door slam shut, as we just saw there. But all that to say that, yeah, it really is. It's a self-contradictory concept to say that nobody can ever judge anyone else. But still, I think that there are some other important considerations when it comes to this whole matter of judgments and making judgments and judging others. And I think one of the things that we can point out is that one of the reasons that we all judge is because it's part of the decision-making process. It's really part of the evaluation process. So what I'm saying is it's necessary. We make judgments because it's necessary to do so. We have to make judgments because every day we have to evaluate. We have to make evaluation about different things that we encounter throughout the day, different things that we encounter throughout our life. And so really it's unavoidable. It's really unavoidable. I think also we can note that, and think about this, if no one was ever allowed to judge anyone else's behavior or actions, if no one was ever allowed to do that, you realize we would never even have a legal system. How many of you have ever served on a jury? You served on jury duty. I've served on jury duty. Most of you have. So when you serve as a juror, you are expected and you are required to do what? To pass judgment on the person who's sitting there based on the evidence. But think about this for a moment. What if no one was ever allowed to judge the behavior and the actions of others? What if no one was willing to judge the behavior and the actions of others? And where does that leave you? Where does that leave us? Well, it means that lawbreakers, those who violate the law, would never be brought to justice. It means that justice would never be served. And then, of course, chaos would follow. That's exactly what would happen. Some of you have heard of Ray Comfort. I personally like Ray Comfort for a lot of reasons, but what you're about to see is a brief conversation between Ray Comfort and a lady who, at least earlier on in the video, she makes it really clear that she's of the view, she's of the opinion that nobody has a right to judge anybody at any time, that nobody should ever judge. And I want you to see what happens when he puts that to the test.
You may remember about 10 or so years ago, this little girl named Jessica in Florida was abducted by a man. She was 7 years old, cute little thing. He sexually molested her and then buried her alive in a plastic bag. They found her clutching to her teddy bear. If you were the judge, how would you sentence that man?
I would probably sentence him to castration and, yeah, death.
Well, so you feel strongly about it.
I do.
So why do you feel like that?
Well, that's like the purest form of evil, what do you think?
So in other words, you believe in justice?
Yeah, I guess so. But I don't believe that we have the right to judge and...
You just made a judgment. You just made a judgment on an evil act, and I think it was good. It shows you value human life and you care about that little girl.
Judgment. I'm not without judgment.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that if that's true, if you think such evil should be punished so severely, how much more should God punish a murderer or a rapist? Can you see that?
You know, I think the thing I find most disturbing about her comment is that there are probably millions of people in America that think just like that have really bought into this idea. And unfortunately, a lot of Christians have bought into this idea. The thing I find really, really disturbing is that even when she's faced with when she comes face to face with the most obvious example, what did she end up doing? Her default position was to say, well, yeah, but nobody has a right to judge anybody else. Until he pointed out to her, well, you just did, and you have to. You have to. You have to say that this was evil.